Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about getting clerics right. All right. So if you want your game to be on that next level, right, as ASPA says, you need to get at minimum the base core 4 right. You got to understand these classes, right? So clerics are massively powerful, right? And they are truly, truly powerful. I think most dungeon masters think of clerics, and this isn't everybody's fault, right? So, one, if you're getting clerics wrong, which is highly likely right now, you have an excuse if you're faithless, right? If you are not, if you don't have a faith, right? If you don't have, I'm an evangelical Christian. I believe in a God, and, my life is structured around that, right? And there are lots of other, faithful people who believe in sacred texts and believe in a God, right? And if you do that, it's really going to help you understand clerics, because clerics are heroes of faith, and it's very hard to understand them. Now, the world is filled with nuns now, N-O-N-E, no faith, no religion, right? And I think it's difficult, it's challenging for nuns to understand clerics. And a lot of dungeon masters out there right now, I think, are running clerics as heel bots, right? And they are far more than that. So one of the things is a lot of, one, you got to understand what a cleric does. When you roll into a village, oh, your son or your daughter is blind and they have been since birth, let me remove that condition, right? That is going to put a whole host of goodwill onto that team immediately, right? It's a minor spell for your cleric. It changes lives for the village, right? It's astounding, right? Oh, your leg hasn't allowed you to walk for 20 years. Let me fix that for you. It's very, very powerful, right? And I think it's really important to understand this. And the reason why is we just got a very harsh IRL lesson from the Catholic Church on this. This made national news, right? I'm sorry, international news, right? A Catholic priest for thousands of baptisms said, "We baptize you, not I baptize you." This is a major problem, right? And it actually, the Catholic Church legit said, these are all invalidated. You're like, what? Wait, thousands of baptisms were invalidated? Now, first of all, an invalidated baptism in the evangelical Christian church, it don't even happen, right? And the reason why is, evangelical Christians are like, faith alone, Christ alone. Your salvation comes from Jesus Christ. You ain't doing nothing to earn your salvation, right? And the reason why we believe this is thief on the cross, right? Thief on the cross, Jesus is like, hey, buddy, you've done, nothing but evil your whole life, but you just recognized me as your savior. Bet, I'll see you in heaven, buddy, right? Didn't do a thing. He was literally nailed to a cross. So we know that works don't have anything to do with salvation. They don't believe that in the Catholic Church, right? They're like, you've got to be in church. You got to be baptized. They got a whole list of stuff where you're like, where basically Catholicism has a strong belief. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? But I'm pretty sure, I pay a lot of attention to matters of faith. And Catholics are Jesus plus. Jesus isn't enough to save you. You got some checklist items to complete for yourself, right? In evangelical Christianity, if you believe that Jesus saved you, you saved. Done. End of sentence, right? In fact, not only is that all you need, that's all you can provide, right? Your good deeds are filthy rags. You went to church for 20 years, but you really didn't believe in Jesus? Guess where you going? It ain't up. This Catholic priest invalidated thousands, it was a large number of baptisms, a really super high number of baptisms. And this gets really problematic, right? Because one, I don't know if you know, but baptism is super important. A whole bunch of people come, it's witness to all this stuff, right? The worst part is, oh my gosh, if you believe baptism is part of your salvation, right, which a lot of Catholics believe, and then you get baptized and it was invalid and then you die, so here's what you got to understand as a dungeon master. Your clerics are incredibly important. And if you don't think this is, that they are, take a look at the international story Like, this is New York Times, like, whole bunch of real major news sources were like, a whole bunch of people's baptism was invalid. That's really important because like 50 to 100 to 150 people come to a single baptism, right? It is an event, right? And that's what you need to remember as a dungeon master. That cleric roll up in the village, roll up in the town, roll up in the metropolis, right? They got the power of God in them. They got the power of deities in them, right? They can heal, right? And not just HP, getting sucked out by, from a vampire, bite, right? Like, they can heal conditions, right? And this is real to real people, right? So mothers, fathers, siblings, when people are healed, there is a huge amount of goodwill. And you owe that to your Dungeons & Dragons player to make sure you're giving their cleric all due respect, right? Because the Catholic priest learned last week, you get it wrong, there are big problems. And it's the flip side too. You get it right and you serve people's spiritual needs, you're going to get a lot of goodwill from that. Make sure you're giving your clerics in your Dungeons & Dragons games their proper due, right? And also make sure they're saying, like, you better tell that player, hey, you better get these words in this spell right. Like, you got verbal, somatic, and material components. They all got to be correct, right? And let them know. All that's my opinion. What do you think? How do you make sure that your clerics are given their full due in your Dungeons & Dragons game? I'd love to hear it. And how do you make sure that they're more than heal bots? I'd love to hear your answer. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.